let's dig in. First, I wanted to start off by asking you, what does travel mean to you? And it may mean different things to you, but I wanted to read one of my favorite quotes that actually I don't know who said it, but it's very interesting because it says, never lose your sense of wonder. No matter where you're at in life, it's important to never lose your sense of wonder. Stay curious about what's out there and don't be afraid to find out. The world is waiting to be seen by you. Go out and learn something new. So that's one of my favorite things, and I guess maybe it's more relevant for this time that we can't physically travel, but we can still travel and we can still learn about different educations, and we still could wonder, but maybe not physically and the way that we used to travel before. So a little bit of introduction about myself for those of you who are not familiar with me, although I've recognized some of my clients, some friends, I can see them here, which is very heartwarming. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm so glad that you decided to spend your evening with us and give this gift to yourself, that learn something new and have some fun. So a little bit about my background. I'm actually an engineer by trade, and I had done, my master's is in analytics. So I've done technology analytics for a big corporation for a long time. And it was then that I realized that I finally wanted to take my passion of travel seriously. So I started my own boutique travel concierge business, which is a concierge and a travel agency in the background, to create those magical moments and helping other people to make their dream vacations come true. I strongly believe that planning a vacation is so hard, putting it all together is so hard, and that's something that I'm passionate to do for my clients and to help people with creating that magical moment for them. And it doesn't really matter what it is. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is building a custom-made and personalized trips, because I believe that we are all different, we travel differently, we have a different value system, and that's how I've been operating in my business. If you are not following my Instagram, I highly, highly encourage that you do that. Maybe right now, go to Travel Design by Layla on Instagram or on Facebook, because I share tons of stuff. One of my mission in life is to actually inspire and educate people before even assisting them. So there's tons of free content, free information, and if you wanted to sign in to my newsletter, please feel free to do so. But much about myself, I wanted to introduce my guest speaker. So I have here Sebastiano Peluso. So one of the things that, I can't claim that I'm an expert for all the regions, all the parts of the planet, but what I do and what I find is I need great partners across the world that I can bounce ideas and I can connect to the resources to be able to help my clients. And Sebastiano is one of those people for Italy that I run ideas by, and I trust his judgment. And more importantly, he's from Italy and from Sicily. So Sebastiano, introduce yourself, and let's talk more about Sicily. You're on mute, by the way.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Leila, for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Sebastiano Peluso.
How do I get, I can't get any sound on here. Or do I have?
Okay, go ahead, Sebastiano.
Thanks. My name is Sebastiano Peluso. I am from Sicily. I was born in Sicily, and my family is from a small town in the Barocco Valley, close to Syracuse. So I lived there since I was 18, and then I moved to Milano to study engineering, like Leila. I've been doing basically digital consulting after the graduation, and I've been working on the destination management field. So my clients were the government, the provinces, the region. So I was able to travel all along Italy and to promote destination, very famous and completely new through website, marketing plan, mobile app, and I found out also offering of amazing
Unmuted.
boutique
Let's start the
boutique
video.
Now,
tour
Sure, go ahead.
amazing boutique tour operators all along Italy, in Tuscany, in Sicily, the Amalfi Coast, very well managed and small in some way, not able to promote themselves very well. Then I moved to the US. I moved in New York in 2013, and then from October I'm in Los Angeles, and I start working on selling tours, and because I in some way knew that the market was ready for a new kind of tourism. So by new, I mean new things to do in popular destination. So experiences in Rome, in Florence, in Venice, and also new places to promote, including Sicily, where I am from and where I also started my touring company with my friends from childhood. And so I started the company called Discovery Italy, was incorporated in the US, and I work primarily through travel designer like Leila. And I offer high quality experiences and tours in all Italy. And Sicily, of course, is our best seller because, as you will see today, there is a lot of do in terms of food and wine, art and culture, and outdoor activities. And so I'm happy to share with you my knowledge and my experience of this beautiful land.
Excellent. So let's talk about why Sicily should be on your bucket list. So we're going to dig deeper into some of those, but what's interesting, and a lot of you may not know, so when you're traveling to Sicily, you're experiencing all of these cultures and architectures from Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and because again, so invaders came and they conquered Sicily. They brought their food stuff with them, their cooking style, and some parts of their architecture. So, for example, ancient Greeks introduced figs, olive trees, artichoke, and sheep's milk cheese. Arabs brought in citrus fruits along with almonds and eggplants that then they was then added to things like pastas. Spaniards, they contributed to tomatoes, to the use of tomato in the Sicilian food and chocolate. So it's really interesting that it's an interesting place that you will see different layers of cultures and architecture, and you would see that in their food. And one of the things that we'll be going to talk about that would be more about the food side of it. The other interesting thing about Sicily, and a lot of people may not know that, is Sicily is amazing. It has amazing wines. Not too many people know about that. And again, because Sicily is such an unknown destination still, and because of the island is a volcanic island, so it's very fertile land for wine, and that's how some of the wine experiences are great there. And when it comes even to accommodation or even the price of food and those wine that I mentioned, things are very affordable, and it's they don't break the bank. The other interesting thing that I mentioned about Sicily was those like layers of history and culture, and then beautiful coastlines and beaches again, because it's in the Mediterranean Sea, down in south part of Italy, north of Africa, surrounded by beautiful water. And so it makes it a beautiful destination. And the other things that's really interesting for me, again, I am very fascinated by archaeology and sightseeing and history. And Sicily has been described as an open air museum because of all the numerous architectural and archaeological sites and treasures. A lot of them are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And again, a lot of people don't know that, unfortunately, because again, Sicily is of a less known place. And that's why that we're going to talk about it, because it's a great time to start visiting Sicily and put that in your travel bucket list, because it won't be too long when it becomes a little bit more touristy. Like I would say probably Positano or the Amalfi Coast, but this is still a less known place, and that's why make it very authentic to go and visit it right now. I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of Sicily now. So again, as I mentioned, this was a thriving Greek colony 500 years before Christ. Then came ancient Rome people, they occupied, and then Sicily fell. And again, after so much chaos, Sicily flourished again. And in 9th to 10th century, Arabs and Moorish people came. And then in the 11th century, the Normans came. So that's why that I was talking about all these layers of culture and history that all were added in together. So there were these just parade of conquerors just coming and coming, and that's why that you even see that in the face of people in Sicily, that a lot of them may have, you know, Greeks background, Roman, Byzantines, Arabs, Norman, French. So it's really mixed part of Europe. The other part about Sicily that worth mentioning is it's not that of a huge island. It's about the size of Vermont. And as I mentioned before, it's one of the lesser visited European cities and that has the culture without the crowd. And that's why it makes it a great destination to visit. In terms of the best time to go, so typically when I talk about these virtual travel series, and I forgot to mention that, so this is the 10th virtual series that I've been running. And in the past, I've partnered up with different, again, experts for any kind of region that I've covered. So I'll talk about that towards the end of our presentation. But typically one of the things that I wanted to share is what's the best time to go? What are all the things that you need to know before you travel to this destination? But again, for Sicily, because it is in Europe, it's fairly, you know, Europe is kind of well known in terms of the best time, the things to do, not so much vaccination is needed. Same as opposite side of Africa or some other exotic destination that you may want to go. But in terms of the best time to go, I would say for Sicily, probably June and September would be the best. And if you're looking for a great beach experience, then I would say maybe May or September. And you wanted to remember that August in Italy is a month that everyone goes on vacation. So try the last week of July and the first 2 weeks of August is really busy in Italy just because of all the local people have taken vacation. So the prices are up. And again, you wanted to go to southern part of Europe, places like Spain, Portugal, Sicily, when the weather is a little bit milder. It's in the shoulder season, so not exactly during the summertime when things are even more expensive. And Sebastiano, feel free to jump in when you wanted to either correct me or add more information and context.
Sure, but you say everything as you were Sicilian, so okay. I'm very impressed about your knowledge, and I'm also taking some notes of what you said because there was something I didn't know.
Great.
Just kidding. No, it was perfect. Yeah.
Okay, good. The other interesting thing about Sicily, and I heard it a little while ago, was Sicily, it's like a football ball literally being kicked by the Italian boot. And I put this picture because it really shows. So this is the Italian boot, and this is Sicily, and this is how literally it was sort of like kicked by the Italian boot. And it's, as I mentioned, center of Mediterranean, and again, great destination to visit. But so now I'm going to ask Sebastiano to now take us, and we're going to go a little bit deeper in terms of, again, knowing these destinations a little bit more, diving into the food and wine, and then to the arts and culture side of it, and then we have a cooking show. So Sebastiano, take us to Sicily now, please.
Sure, thank you. So I will be happy to take you to Sicily soon, and it's easy to access because, as you can see, we have basically 4 airports. Palermo, Catania are the main one, and then 2 small regional airports, Trapani and Comiso, connecting Sicily with Italy, Europe, and we were close to be connected directly to the US. Before the pandemic, there was this flight scheduled from Newark to Palermo, direct from Continental. They should have started on May 20th. And we hope they will continue or guarantee the flight after it will be possible to fly, because it's a very easy way to access to Sicily. Other than that, you can fly with one stop in Rome and in Milan, or you can also make a stop in Paris, London, Frankfurt, Munich, and then take a flight to Sicily. We also have 7 cruise ship ports, so cruise lines arrive in Sicily, and so you can also enjoy short excursions while you're there. And there are ferry ports connecting Sicily to Italy and to Malta from Pozzallo.
Excellent. I can see some questions in the chat box. So leave all your questions. You can still put them in the chat box, but we're going to answer all of those questions towards the end of the presentation. So let's
go to
talk
the next.
about the food and wine aspect of Sicily now.
Yeah, so as we said, we will cover 3 main area, 3 main reasons to visit Sicily. They can be all together: food and wine, art and culture, and outdoor. Let's start with food and wine. As Leila said before, we are a blessed destination because the soil is really rich in terms of minerals, because it's a volcanic island with an active volcano. Other than this, we had a lot of cross-contamination by cultural domination that started from the 7th century BC, brought different culture in Sicily. And so we have the Greek in the 7th centuries, and then we have the Phoenician arriving on the west side in the 900 and BC. Then we became part of the Roman Empire, and then the Arab came, and then the Norman and the Spanish. So every culture left something in the island in terms of architecture and culture, we see, but also in terms of food. So our recipe book is literally an history book. And so we have top famous food like the cassata or cannoli that you probably know, with clear influences from the Arab pastry, using candies and raisin, and also in the food, a lot of nuts and sesame. What you probably don't know is that we have 2 special dishes among all the recipes that we have in Sicily that express better than other the influences of different culture. The first one is the couscous that you can find in the area of Trapani. Trapani is in the northwest of Sicily, and that area is from centuries is a land of people moving from Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Libya to work on the fishing industry. And so people moving to Sicily usually accommodate and integrate very well with the local people. And so we learn in Sicily how to make couscous. But then we did a Sicilian touch because we have this recipe of the fish couscous that is really amazing and you have to try when you will visit the upper west side of Sicily. On the other hand, in the southeast, we have a chocolate in Modica that has been brought by the Spanish. It's a chocolate made with a recipe that comes from Mexico, from the Aztec population, and is a recipe that basically works on the chocolate at a lower temperature. Lower temperature means that the sugar doesn't melt. And so within the chocolate, you can feel in the texture, in the granular texture, the sugar separated by the cocoa. And this gives a very intense taste and very particular. Also, in the seasoning that we use in this chocolate in Modica is different because we use chili pepper. And so you can try this spicy chocolate. It's really delicious, unique, only from the area of Modica. Now it's available in many like gourmet pastry, including the shopping mall Italy. There are in many cities in the US, is in New York, in Boston, in LA. I think in Toronto they open too. So it's something really interesting to try. On the wine map, we are also very rich because Sicily has been producing wine since the Greek time, but now only in the last 20 years, the producer that before were producing for other winery, especially for French wineries, started producing their own wine and branding their own wines. And so we have on the west part, the blue one in the picture, we call that area the White Wine West. And it's famous for white wines like Grillo, Insolia, and also for dessert wine like the Marsala, that is named after the city of Marsala. Then we have on the west coast, we have the volcano, the Etna volcano. Is the tallest volcano in Europe, active, and is also set for many of our outdoor activities. And in the volcano, we also grow wine. And the wine is really, really unique because it grows on this mineral ground that is basically, it was lava before. So it's rich in terms of minerals. Is on a high altitude, is higher than the average wineries. And so the temperature is colder, and this gives to the wine a special personality. And it's also surrounded by the ocean, so it gets a lot of ions from the breeze coming from the ocean. So the result is an incredible wine. If you try, especially the white wine, the Etna Bianco, that I suggested you to buy, a very cold glass of Etna wine, you can feel the mineral, you can feel the salinity of the wine. And it's something that is unique of this area. It's great if you taste outside, but I assure you, if you taste Etna, a glass of Etna wine in the Etna winery, it's totally different. And then in the south of Sicily, we have all the area of Noto, Avola, Vittoria, that is famous for strong red wine. Nero d'Avola, Cerasuolo di Vittoria, and Frappato. That completes the offering of wine in Sicily. So we have a lot of food and wine to try. And so we are able to organize different format for you to get in touch with the food and the wine and enjoy a marvelous experience. The first format is, of course, the cooking class. So it's the approach to the food by making the food. We offer a cooking class in the major cities, in Palermo, in Catania, in Syracuse, in Taormina. And the format is the same. And then the menu and the location is different according to the city where we are. The format has the chef leading a shopping tour first in the grocery store or in the farm to select the ingredients to use in the class. And then we move to a farmhouse or to a villa or a restaurant, and the chef leads a cooking class where you can learn. That's the previous slide. when you learn how to cook a Sicilian meal with different menus. We have the fish cooking class, the meat cooking class, the vegetarian, we have the pizza and gelato, we have the arancini, the rice balls and cannoli. So you can choose the menu and have fun and learning how to cook. Another experience is the following one. On the following slide is the dine with locals. So we have selected Sicilian families who are happy to host people at home. So we visit the family and we cook together with them. We learn all the ancient recipe from the grandma, we prepare the food together, and then we have lunch with a Sicilian family with homemade food. And this is another way to approach the food, learning how the food is made in a Sicilian home. We have next the cheese making tour. So in the farm or in ancient villa, we have the farmer making the cheese starting from the milk. So you will see all the process from the milk to create world five famous cheeses like mozzarella, ricotta, and typical Sicilian cheese like the primo sale and caciocavallo. And then during the class, you will also be able to taste the cheese and taste also other delicacies of the Sicilian tradition, like sausage and olives and sun-dried tomatoes and capers. And it's a very fun day with a lot of learning opportunities, especially for family with kids, because they really love how to see how the milk becomes cheese. Talking about fun activities, we have the truffle hunt. Is in the forest, in the mountains between Siracusa and Ragusa, we have truffle. So the truffle hunt is an experience that starts with a walk in the forest, very easy, in a very smooth forest, with a dog and a truffle hunter. And we find truffle pretty much all the year. And then in the fall, it's also possible to find some mushrooms. In the spring, some asparagus and other herbs. So for whatever we find in the forest, then we move to a restaurant or a villa for a truffle-based cooking class. So you will learn how to use the truffle, how to clean, and how to prepare a truffle-based meal. All these activities are in many different locations, but one is particular in the area of Syracuse is an ancient water mill. It's a beautiful property with rivers, waterfalls that we use for many of the food and wine activities, for the cooking class, for the cheese making, for the truffle hunt. We have also hosted yoga retreat, a meditation retreat. So it's a very beautiful corner of paradise in the mountains of Sicily. Other format that we can offer. The wine tour in many wineries that you saw on the map. We offer the tour that includes walking the vineyards, the tasting of the wine, and also it's possible to have lunch in the winery and also to pair 2 or 3 different wineries on the same day. Next, we have the chocolate discovery. So the chocolate that I said before is possible not only to taste in the pastry Modica, where they make the chocolate, but also to do a chocolate cooking class. So you can do your own bar of chocolate, choosing the density, the darkness, the seasoning, and then try at the end of the class.
This is, again, I just wanted to reiterate that a lot of people don't know about the chocolate discovery at all in Sicily. So, because again, this is some of the, insider information that true local guides would know, and they would be able to guide you in the right place.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have other format. We have the pizza making cooking class. We have the day at the farm where you learn how to make the bread, and we also have a very special format, the street food tour. We do street food tour in Palermo, in Catania, in Syracuse. It's a walking tour in the downtown of the most beautiful destination, where we stop at a street food vendor and we try the food. We have both savory and sweet. So we have sandwiches with the chickpeas, we have the arancini, we have the Granita is the ice dessert with almond or lemon, and is also another way to discover flavors and experiences surrounded by the beauty of the historical downtown, usually within the market, in the central market of every town. So with this format, we want to give you a full approach to the richness of Sicilian food and wine. You can approach from different angles, from the street, homemade, made at the farm, or made by you. We also include in some tour also fine dining in a local trattoria or gourmet restaurant. So you can try also the food from the professionals. And each angle is different, but is the same. So, for example, one recipe that we have is the caponata. Caponata is a recipe made with veggies and sugar and vinegar. If you try the caponata in the restaurant or on the street or in a house, homemade, or in a farm, or you make your own caponata, there are five different ways, five different flavors for the same recipe, and five different learning and fun opportunities.
Okay. Excellent.
And this is the food and wine, yeah.
Yeah, so we basically covered the food and wine aspect, and so next we have arts and culture. But before that, I wanted to test your knowledge of Sicily. So I'm just launching a poll, and we just gonna give it 30 seconds or so for you to answer. What's the name of the capital of Sicily? And if you have listened carefully, you should. We've already answered the second question, which is what's the name of the tallest active volcano in Europe? Okay, 15 more seconds. Okay, so the name of the capital of Sicily is Palermo, and the name of the tallest active volcano in Europe is Mount Etna, which we talked about it when we talked about wine. So let's move forward with the arts and culture aspect of the archaeology. So Sebastiano, if you wanted just to briefly talk a little bit about Sicily in general, and then I'll be taking us to Palermo and talk a little bit more about Palermo.
Yeah, so you said pretty much the most important things. So many dominations, many different archaeological style. I give you just a number. Sicily is from east to west is 250 miles. So in 250 miles, you have 2,500 years of history. From the Greek archaeology with theaters and temples that, okay, I'm Sicilian and I'm a little bit biased, but are in a better state of conservation than in Greece. We have Phoenician archaeology in Mozia and Trapani, the Arab and Norman architecture in Palermo, Monreale, Cefalù. We have an amazing Roman villa with mosaics in Piazza Armeria. If you see the Lower East Side, to use a New York terminology, the Lower East Side of Sicily, Ragusa, Noto, Modica, Siracusa, that part has been destroyed by an earthquake in 1693. And so all the town have been rebuilt with the style of the time. At the time we were part of the Spanish kingdom, so all the town have been rebuilt in in Spanish Barocco style. And now in that area there are amazing churches and palaces and squares. Most of them are UNESCO heritage, and so it's also something special to visit. In every site we have English-speaking license guide for you to enjoy. You can either choose to visit by yourself the monument on the site, or we can add an English-speaking guide to let the experience be more deep and more knowledgeable and rewarding. And then we have some pictures to show what we said about Palermo, the capital.
So, all right, so let's go to Palermo. So as we, one of the questions that we asked, so Palermo is the historical capital. It's a busy port, as you probably see in one of our slides. Here, a few things I wanted to point out for Palermo. And again, going back to those like layers of history, for those of you who love architecture and history, I have to admit, I'm a big fan of history, archaeology, and architecture. And if you've been to, we had a session about Spain and south of Spain and Andalusia, and we talked about Moorish style. So if you look at this cathedral, you would see, again, different types of style. And again, because it's due to those various conquering nations and empires that run Sicily, they were bringing all of their culture there. So this cathedral, it was constructed in 1185, and then that the church has seen many uses, including then, being a mosque. So one of the things that happened a lot in Sicily is it may have been a church, mosque, and then different things happened because of whoever took over Sicily at that time. If you see here that you could see the Moorish influence is present on the exterior, and you see a clock tower, and you will see a central basilica. So you'll see all those kinds of, Renaissance clock tower, and different things that you will see in a lot of historical buildings in Europe. The other thing about Palermo, again, Sicily, is the opera house, and again, lots of beautiful places to visit inside of those places. But again, we don't have time to talk about those, so we're just going to talk about some of the highlights. One of the other interesting things for me for traveling to Sicily, and again, it's because it's still a less known destination, very authentic, not so much tourists are going there. And these are some of the pictures of one of the Palermo's ancient outdoor market. And you walk into those markets, and those vendors are shouting to attract and to get your attention to buy their food, but their delicious produce of fruits, seafood is very dominant, as you can see, and the food scene in those markets are great. I wanted to briefly mention something about the history of mafia and Sicily. And again, that was, a history of absentee landlords, and all the way back to the time that Romans left Sicily in a little bit of persistent poverty. And the oppression left to culture inclined to accept the corruption and to be cynical towards the law. And that's why these like organized crime and the mafia shaped up. But again, in 1990, the government had vigorous campaign to rein the mafia. And one of the things that you will see is these are the two leading judges who led the charge against mafia, and they were successful. And after that, they were assassinated. And then, the public was so angry. And then finally in 1990s, then mafia was disappeared. So now Sicily, it's been absolutely safe, like other Italian cities. So I don't want any of us to have still any sort of impression that this area is not safe at all because of the past history. The other interesting thing, so this is Sciaflu, which is a little bit of like a resort town closer to Palermo. And it's one of the most beautiful, romantic, kind of more like villages, smaller town that still very untouched, and you could still go and have a great time there. So in terms of what we are going to do, so we visited Palermo. We talked a little bit about Palermo. Again, we can go extensively into all the things and interesting things you could do in Palermo, but things that I mentioned were the highlights of Palermo. But now we wanted to move to Mount Etna, which is somewhere here, and we covered the wine experience side of it, but let's talk about what's the significance of Mount Etna, apart from being the Europe's biggest volcano mountain and being 11,000 feet high. It's one of the things that not too many people know is it had erupted in the past, so it's still a very active. And this picture that I left on the right, it shows that literally a house was buried. You could take the gondola up to the mountain. It's a great place. Some people actually go for skiing still there. And as we mentioned, it's a great wine region. But one of the other reason that it's actually very volcanic, because Sicily is part Europe and part Africa, and that's why these two tectonic plates are kind of like colliding, and that's why that their volcano happens there, and that's why it's active in that area. And we covered, because of, again, being in volcanic soil, being near the water, and that elevation, it gives this land a great opportunity to have a fantastic wine. Now we're going to another city of Agrigento. As we mentioned, and I briefly mentioned about that Sicily is like an open air museum. You could go all these places and you will see all these historical monuments. So Agrigento is the most impressive ancient site. And in the 5th century BC, Agrigento was the 3rd largest city in the Greek world after Athens, and another city actually in Sicily. So this was a great kind of like a second part to Greece. And so this place is a religious ensemble. There were about a dozen of gods, a dozen temple here. So this land in Agrigento is just a massive land of having all those temples. But the Temple of Concordia is the ones that's left the best you could see. So, like, again, briefly mentioning all those historical things across Sicily. And Sebastiano, take us now to Siracusa.
Siracusa is a recently famous destination for non-Sicilian. It's a mix of architectural styles, because it's a Greek colony of the 750 BC with Greek theater and an archaeological park. And then the downtown, the historical downtown, is in an island. Consider that the island of Ortigia that you can see in the bottom left corner is where all the historical city developed. It's like Manhattan for New York. Inside there are beautiful palaces for the Baroque style after the earthquake, including the church, the Duomo that you can see on the left. And the Duomo has many of the monuments in Sicily, is a different layer of history building. On the left side, you can see the column of the Temple of Athena. So this was a Greek temple in the 5th century BC, and then turned into a mosque during the Arab domination, and then became a pagan church and then a Christian church with a Baroque facade added after the earthquake on 1693. So many different religions and many different histories within the same monument. It's also a beautiful city because it's surrounded by the ocean, and is full of also food and wine options because there are amazing restaurants inside the island, and is one of the spots that now is becoming very famous from Italy. We said that Taormina was the new Positano in the 80s. Now Siracusa became the new Taormina, so it's the new place to be in Sicily. Taormina, I was saying before, Taormina is the most charming city that we have, very elegant, romantic, on a cliff. So it reminds Positano for the view that you can have, for the little streets with shops and restaurants. And it's also a Greek colony, so there is an amazing Greek theater overlooking the Mount Etna and the ocean. So it's another place to not miss. Is really romantic, and it's one of the you can have from the Greek theater. They're still active, so there are festivals during the summer, including the Taormina Film Festival, that turns the theater into a movie theater. So it's something also special that has not to be missed on a vacation in Sicily. Taormina is also on the bay of the Taormina Bay, so there are many boat tours that we can organize to visit all the bay and to enjoy also the crystal clear water.
So one of the things I was going to mention about this slide is imagine about 2,500 years ago, Greeks were sitting in this theater and playing or enjoying the music while they were seeing the Etna mountain in the background and the gorgeous view of water there. And if I may add one other thing. So there are cable cars that takes you from upper side of the Taormina down to the beach. So it really looks like, you know, the Amalfi Coast and Positano, but again, without that many crowd in that area.
Yeah, this is the Villa Romana in Piazza Armerina. It's a villa property of a Roman governor who was he was a very, very powerful person. He also in love with mosaics, and in some way probably involved in the trading of animals from Africa to Rome, animals to use in the Colosseum for the show. And so the mosaics inside the villa are incredible, perfectly preserved, and shows all these scenes. It's like a history book. You can see what was going on the trading of the animals, also some of the sports played in Rome, including the one on the left with the girls playing different sports like running or launching the disc or playing something that reminds volleyball. And for the modernity, because it's you can see girls in bikini in the 3rd century BC. And this is something unique that also show how advanced was the culture in the time, and it's also photography of the past. We next should have the Barocco Valley. This is what I was talking about. Noto on the left, Ragusa Ibla, Noto in the bottom left, Ragusa Ibla on the top left, Modica at the center, and Palazzolo on the right are 4 of the many Barocco towns, not including Scicli and other small town villages where you can admire this beautiful building in Barocco style, usually in a very old town, very old part of the town, surrounded by bars, restaurants. So the walking tour in the Barocco Valley is also another reason to visit the southeast and to enjoy these different styles of architecture available in Sicily.
Okay, so just recap of where we have visited so far, and up next, Sebastiano, take us to this region.
Yeah, this region is closer to Palermo, so we are west now. And on that area, we love to offer the visit of Erice. Erice is a medieval town that is great for a walking tour because has small streets with limestones, as a famous pastry where we stop to see how they make Sicilian pastry. and the view from the castle is really unique. It's close to Segesta, another Greek archaeology site with a temple and a Greek theater to visit. On the way from Medici Segesta, we stop to see also the salt pan. So it's area where the salt is made from the ocean. So there are area where the water is channeled, and then the water is removed by, it was removed by windmill, but also by the evaporation from the sun, and then the salt is extracted and sold to the market. So all these three areas are part of the same day tour that we can organize from Palermo. And then next, I think we have other than cities, we have other way to discover the Sicilian culture. For example, we have experience called the time machine, because let you travel back in time. And so in this town close to Syracuse called the Museum Town, you are able to visit the houses and the shops of people as they were in 1800. So the house of the farmer, the shop of the blacksmith, and it's really a way to go back in time. It's a great learning opportunities also for people who were born and raised in the very big cities to see how small the spaces were and how different was life not that many years ago. We have also, as a culture, we have a hidden spot to show in the main destination. For example, this is the Jewish neighborhood in Syracuse. Syracuse had a Jewish quarter perfectly preserved, and 75 years ago, they also discovered a mikveh. It's a ritual bath that was underground, so that the Jewish were expelled from Sicily in 1492. So before leaving, they covered the ritual bath underground, thinking to come back one day. And then it didn't happen. And then in the 7 years ago, during a renovation of a building, they found out the stairs going down, and they found this pool with fresh water that was used by the Jewish to do the ritual bath. And the Jewish tour of Syracuse is one of the most incredible activity to do, because you will see everything as it was 500 years ago. We also have a very good Jewish guide who fall in love with Sicily and then quit, moved from Tel Aviv to Syracuse. So now lives there and is 100% Sicilian, 100% Jewish. So it's a very nice person that you will love if you do the tour in the city.
Great. So this slide, and part of that I added this slide is because one of the things that I always suggest and recommend to my clients and to everyone who is going to Italy is definitely go and try what is called agriturismo, which is, staying in those farms that are they are, making their own agricultural produce. You could stay there. There is a very calm and peaceful experience of like pausing everything and just, going back to 100 years ago, getting very truly amazing organic, and by that I mean like truly organic fruit and food there. High quality stuff, and again, the accommodations are, some of them are very boutique, 5-star, but again, they are, they go 5-star and then lower levels as well. But this is something that I think if you're going to Italy and Sicily, cannot and should not be missed. Moving on to this slide, Sebastiano.
Yeah, we also, many people have ancestors that moved from Sicily to the US. So in Canada, of course, there's a big community of Sicilian in Montreal. And so most of them ask to visit the town where the ancestors moved from. So we can organize a visit to the town with the driver going there. If they have also information about the address, we can take them. If not, we can do also some research to work with a city hall, with a church, to read books, and see if there is any information about the family at the time they left. So to be more accurate and precise in organizing the tour. It's also a service that we offer for people who want to get the dual citizenship that, for up to the third generation, it's possible to get the Italian citizenship. And for this, you need some document. So we can, with the authorization of the client, we can also go and get documents to send to these clients. So it's something we also offer as a service for the people.
Excellent. So let me wrap up so far. So we talked about the food and wine aspect. We talked about the culture and historical aspect of Sicily. But now we wanted to briefly talk about the local traditional festivals in Sicily.
Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead, Sebastiana.
Yeah, they're pretty much in the summer, and they are a celebration of saint, different in every city, but with the same format. So there is a saint that is taken out of the church and brought on top of the shoulder of people all along the town. And the exit from the church is celebrated by fireworks and confetti, and then during the procession, people follow the saint, and the day before, all the same day, for the following week, there are markets on the street where you can find food and street food stand. So it's basically the entire town turned into a restaurant slash resort with people coming, also people who moved for work. They emigrated in Northern Europe or in the US. Many of them come back just for the in occasion of the fest, and so it's also a great time for meet friends from childhood. Other than it's nice to see how the devotion is still very strong in Sicily, and so we can organize a visit to this event and with special services. Like for example, we had a photographer coming, and he asked to have a Sicilian photographer with him. So they do the photographic tour since the beginning of the fest, early morning, where there are some offering to the saint, like people bring bread or they bring the animals for the blessing. And so this guy wanted to have all these moments, and with the help of the photographer, they took amazing shot as a memory for their of their travel. Talking about events, there are many events in Sicily. So if you're interested and we know where you're coming, we can help you in getting tickets, like the Greek festival in Syracuse with plays of the ancient tragedies and comedies of the 5th century BC. There's a flower festival in Noto, the third weekend of May, where the artists design arts on the street using the petals. There are a concert also at night in the Temple Valley of Agrigento. We have 2 opera houses, one in Palermo and one in Catania, with amazing opera performances. So if any of you wants to attend to one of these events, we can help in finding the tickets, driving you there with a car, or even hire a guide to stay with you and explain, to let you and fully enjoy the event.
So we've got 2 other for our cooking part. So these are, I'm just going to go a little bit faster on this because we are running out of time. So some of the outdoor experiences would be jeep ride and hiking on volcano. And again, jeep ride, wine tasting, and helicopter tour. Golf experience is great. And again, fishermen villages or walking tours are available. Boat tours are alternatives. And then we also wanted to give you some ideas around, and I saw some of the questions that, someone said that they need a month in Sicily. So that may be true, but we can also give you some ideas around how to best take your time in Sicily. So we have some ideas and some suggestions So Sebastiano, back to you in terms of some of the option in terms of how to best see Sicily, again, in a shortest amount of time, but again, with the full experience possible.
Yeah, it is true. You can say 1 month in Sicily doing every day something different and special. So that means that if you want to go to Sicily, I would plan at least 6 nights or better 9 nights to visit both the West and the East. They are totally different in terms of food, archaeology, architecture, and lifestyle. So what we do to optimize the tour of Sicily, we don't have a standard tour of Sicily. We organize custom made. So we try to minimize the number of hotel change. So when we go, for example, in Palermo, we stay 2 or 3 nights, and we do a day at leisure, a full day to do Erice Suggesta, street food tour, and Monreale. But every night we go back to Palermo without changing the hotels. And so usually at the end of the tour is about 5 or 6 p.m. We have time to go back to the room, take a shower, have a glass of wine, do shopping, and have the rest. When we move from point to point, in order to optimize the time, we do what we call the transfer tour. So for example, if you go from Palermo to Taormina straight using the highway is 2 hours. With the transfer tours, is 6 hours, but instead of you taking the highway, you will go through the internal sightseeing street, thanks to the knowledge of our driver. And you make 2 stops to visit the Agrigento and the Temple Valley and Piazza Armerina and the Roman Villa that are worth it to visit, but instead of spending 1 night in Agrigento and then just see the Temple Valley, 1 night in Piazza Armerina, you can do on the same day. It's a 6 to 8 hours day, but in the same day, you see 2 wonderful sites without the necessity to have another hotel. There is a waste of time in terms of packing, unpacking, check-in and check-out. And so even when you move, so when you transfer, you have the tour. So that's the transfer tour. So any tour of Sicily is a mix of a full day, half day, and transfer tour. So this is, for example, is a 12 nights. It's 4 nights in Palermo, where you do the Erice Suggesta, Monreale, then on the way to go to Agrigento, you stop to Solinunte to see the temple and the Turkish step. Then you stay in Agrigento for a cooking class, and then when you move from Agrigento to Siracusa, you stop in Piazza Armerina to see the Roman Villa. Then a few days in Siracusa doing the Barocco Valley, the truffle hunt, the cooking class, the wine tasting, and then when you move from Siracusa to Taormina, you do a transfer tour and you stop to Modica Ragusa, the 2 Barocco town, for the same reason we said before. So in the transfer, you have the tour. In Taormina, there is the 4th hotel, so 4 hotels, 1 in Palermo, 1 in Agrigento, 1 in Siracusa, 1 in Taormina. You do the Taormina experience, stay in the town, you do the Etna experience, going to visit the volcano and to do wine tasting with lunch in 1 or 2 Etna wineries, and then you leave from Catania. So arriving in Palermo, leaving from Catania. This is can be a 9 or 10 days tour. This is another example of tour that we have designed for a culinary academy here in Los Angeles. It's a food and wine tour of Sicily. So basically we do 4 nights west, 4 nights east. And in both the part of the island, we do 1 cooking class, 1 dine with locals, 1 farm experience, and 1 street food. And then you move to the east part and you do the same to give the flavor of the difference of recipes and culture in an island that is a unique island, but with 2 completely different souls. The west part that is Arab and Norman, and the east side that is completely Greek. And these are just 2 examples that we can also do. If you want to stay like just on the west, we have like 3 or 4 nights. We suggest to stay either west or east, not moving from point to point. And if you have more time, we can also add a tour of the south of Italy. So Sicily is perfect to be paired also with the Amalfi Coast and with Puglia. This is like a 2 weeks tour where we arrive in Rome. On the way to Napoli, we stop to see Pompeii and the Royal Palace in Caserta, a few days in the Amalfi Coast to see Capri, Positano, Ravello, Sorrento, and then on the way to Puglia, there is the
So Malta would be a great destination. So Malta, Puglia, Sicily, and Amalfi Coast. If you could, if you have time, those would be great combinations.
Yeah, Malta is from Sicily, from Pozzallo is 90 minutes with a hydrofoil. Or you can fly from Catania to Malta, it's less than 1 hour. So you can also definitely add Malta. So if you have more time, you can do the grand tour of the south of Italy. Or you can also pair Sicily with Tuscany or with Rome, Florence, and Venice. If you've never been to Italy, you can add other destinations since you are in Europe. And according to the time and what you want to do, we can design the perfect itinerary for you.
Okay, excellent. So we are coming to an end of our presentation slide. I wanted to leave you with Anthony Bourdain's quote, which is one of my favorite ones, that says, "Travel isn't always pretty. It isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. It even breaks your heart, but that's okay. The journey changes you. It should change you. It leaves a mark on your memory, on your consciousness, on your heart, and on your body. You take something with you. Hopefully you will something good behind." And with that, we are going to get to our cooking show part of the evening. I've already shared the ingredients. I'm hoping that you have had a chance to get the ingredients, and Sebastiano will be cooking for us. And I guess in the meantime, I'll be going through some of the questions and answering them.
Okay. So I'm moving to the kitchen now, but I can answer also the question if any. Or you want me to
Great.
stay for the?
Yeah,
I can stay for the question, or I can move to the kitchen.
Yeah, you move to the kitchen. I'll read out the question, or either I answer it and I leave it for you to also jump in. But
Okay.
if anyone has questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. But I'm just going backward to some of the questions that you've previously asked and answer them. Okay.
I'm wearing the apron to look professional.
So one of the questions is, can you be more specific regarding prices? So I can be very specific at this point, but what I can tell you is Sicily is one of the very affordable destinations in Europe. What's the main language spoken in Sicily? To the best of my knowledge, is Italian. But are there either dialects or something like that, Sebastiano? You may be mute.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so we speak Italian, and then Sicilian is also a dialect that we speak among friends or with our grandparents, and is let's say different from different cities of Italy. It sounds like Spanish, French with some Arabian words, but yeah, definitely Italian, and now English is widely spoken in bars, restaurants, of course, hotels, and all our guides and drivers are perfectly English speaking.
Okay. And then there's some other questions around, what do you recommend for the best experiences, not rushed? Again, we covered East and West are very different. We gave you some ideas for the best time then in Sicily. But again, some other experiences could be done in a day tour without, again, staying in one place, going back and forth, and have day tours instead of staying in that place.
Can you repeat the question? Because I was removing the headphones. So if
No,
I
we've already
suggest to...
covered it. We've already answered that question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so so there are some questions about the weather again. And as we mentioned, summer are really hot and it's more expensive and more crowded, especially the later July towards August. So if you could manage your time in May or September, that would be wonderful. Yes, I think Sebastiano, do you mind switching your camera so that people could see?
Okay, so for the class, I will be helped by my wife, Courtney.
Ciao.
Ciao.
And she will help with the preparation, also with all the, you know, the camera, holding the camera and explaining also some of the passage. And before that, I will have a glass of wine with all of you.
I forgot. I was supposed to share the link because we had some suggestions in terms of the wine that would go well with the food. I'm sorry, I forgot to include that in the ingredients, but I'll share it with whoever that registered for the event tonight.
Okay, so cheers. This is Etna Rosso. It's a red wine, and so cheers to the first for you and for your Sicilian experience online.
Thank you.
Right, so I've prepared already the ingredients. I'll show what we had. So we had cherry tomatoes that I've previously cut, and I've added some salt for the tomato to make some of this juice. So you will see that makes the sauce more delicious. We have fresh parsley, capers, anchovies, and garlic, breadcrumbs, and pasta. So I already had put the water in the pot to cook the pasta. So I'm turning it on now because we need the pasta, the water to boil. So
do you buy a specific brand of pasta, or do you buy like what we can find in Canada, or do you buy from like Italian stores?
I think that the Checo pasta is perfect. Specifically, since there's in Italy, here in Los Angeles, I bought this artisanal pasta from, is a Gragnano style pasta di Gragnano. That is also available in many grocery stores or in other than Italy. But if you can find, the Checo is a good quality of pasta. Rich, remains hard, absorbs the sauce, and so is my suggestion.
So I'm getting some questions, but Sebastiano is sharing his video. You should be able to see his video.
Yeah, probably they need to move the you know, if you swipe, you have a phone and you swipe.
No, you're good. No, you're good. So maybe there is, but they should be able to see. Let me see if I can pin this.
If they keep swiping.
I'm going to put myself on mute, so maybe it goes back and forth on me.
Leila, I know what is happening. You have the presentation still on show mode, so I guess the primary screen. If you press ESC, it is not on a slideshow, or you stop sharing your screen.
I just stopped it, so it should be good now.
All right. Okay, so we start with breadcrumbs first. We need to toast the breadcrumbs. So we will use a pan. It's the same pan that we will use for the oil, for the sauce later. And we are adding some olive oil. I can be precise for the quantity of olive oil. We are basically using, this is a 1/3 cup measure, and we will use half of these. We are cooking half pound of pasta, so is half the quantity that I sent you. The one that I sent is 1 pound, is for 4 people. For 2 people, half a pound. So we are adding the oil in the pan. The heat is off, so we are adding the oil so that the pan is completely covered. Okay, and heat on high to have the oil becoming hot. And then we will pour the breadcrumbs on the oil to toast until it becomes crunchy and brown. Then we will remove the breadcrumb toasted, and we will add it at the end in the sauce when the pasta is ready. Okay. Yeah, it takes between 2 and 3 or 4 minutes to do this. It's when the oil is hot, then I turn the heat on low, and I spread the breadcrumbs evenly. You will see a change in the color of the breadcrumbs, turning from white to golden brown to brown, and the texture is becoming crunchy. Keep stirring so you don't have the breadcrumbs sticking on the pan and burning. To feel if it's crunchy, you can just, I'm using a spatula, but if you want to use also a wooden spoon, it's the same. So this is a recipe, authentic Sicilian recipe, because we use anchovies a lot in our food, and breadcrumbs too. It also has a little bit of cherry tomatoes that are used to give some color, but you can do the same recipe without the cherry tomatoes. It's a little bit faster, but still delicious. And this is something that you also cook when you have not much time. Usually you have, as a Sicilian, you always have anchovies, capers, and breadcrumbs and all. So it's like an emergency pasta, or when we were younger, we used to cook this coming back from the disco or from a night with friends, and because it's like a social pasta, very easy to share. So the breadcrumbs are getting toasted. There will be a change in the color that probably you can see. I don't know if the camera is able to show. And if you have questions, I think, Leila, you can read us the question if someone is asking. I don't know how many of you are cooking or just watching, but I'm happy to also answer to the question.
Still, they can still question, but they mainly they are still asking about some timing question, which I answered some of them.
Okay.
But they can unmute themselves and they can ask their questions.
Okay. Oh yeah, through the chat. I mean, feel free to ask if some curiosity.
I guess the other thing I wanted to highlight as part of our, Sicilian experience is one of the things that you will see again is that how much you use seafood and anchovies and sardines in a lot of Sicilian dishes.
Yeah, because the ocean is one of the main source of food for us. So sardines, tuna, and clams, and shellfish in general. So we have a lot of variety, mostly in the coastline cities. So Syracuse, for example, or Palermo. If you go in the mountain, there is more consumption of meat, like pork and beef. And the way we cook is pretty easy. So we don't use that much sauce or butter or any kind of heavy ingredients. It's basically olive oil, garlic, and parsley. Olive oil, garlic, parsley, and red chili pepper is the base to start for probably 90% of the Sicilian recipe for pasta. And it's different from the north. For example, in the north, in Milano, in Lombardy, they use more butter than olive oil. But when you go south, you will see more olive oil used and more fresh fish, very simple cook. So if you can see now, the breadcrumb is very brown. Means that it's toasted. So we are very close to turn the heat off and to save the breadcrumbs in a bowl or in a plate for us to use later when the sauce will be ready. Okay, so I've turned the heat off now. And then I'm moving the breadcrumbs into a bowl.
So next you're making the sauce.
It's the same pan that we use for the sauce, yeah. All right. So I'm using like pepper sour now.
Yeah, so one of the things that Sebastiano asked me to include in the ingredients yesterday was to make sure that those cherry tomatoes are cut and salted.
Yeah, as I showed before, if you salt the cherry tomatoes, the result is that if you mix them, you will see that tomatoes make this juice that we will add when we cook the anchovies before the tomatoes. So it makes the plate even more delicious. So now it's time to start with the sauce. So we will use olive oil, garlic, and parsley to start, and red pepper flakes. So for olive oil, we are adding a third of a cup of olive oil. Again, for half a pound of pasta. Then we add 2 big garlic cloves that I previously peeled. I have 2 small and 1 large. The heat is on off. It's frying because the pan is still hot. Then I'm adding red pepper flakes to taste. So you decide the level of spiciness that you want. We add like a generous part because we love spicy food. And then we have the oil frying with garlic, and then we will add some fresh parsley that I have already cut in small pieces this side.
oil to sizzle and the garlic to start cooking, but we don't want the garlic to become brown. Okay, then it's time to add the capers. So what I'm doing now is giving to the oil the flavor of the garlic, of the pepper flakes, and the parsley. Now we add the capers. So frito means basically frying before as a base for something else. So this is the sofrito we are frying because then we will add something more to make the sauce. So we are adding the capers now.
You can, for those of you following, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions live.
Yeah. So the heat is on low, so that can slowly cook without burning anything. And you should be able to smell all the flavors, the garlic, the capers, the parsley. Okay, so we are ready now to add the part of the anchovies. So we have anchovies in olive oil and salt. So what we're doing is we will use basically half of the quantity of the anchovies on the sauce and half we will save for later as we want the part of the anchovies to be not cooked and to be added to the pasta. And I like to use also the oil that is inside the anchovies because it gives a lot of flavor. But you don't have to do it if you prefer. It's really salty, and this is something that is totally personal. I love to do this, so I'm using only oil, not the anchovies yet, to add more flavor. And then from the tomatoes that we previously made, we get just the juice that I made with the salt we had before. So you can see. Okay, if some tomato goes, it's fine. So all this juice is becoming really rich and flavorful, and will be ready for the anchovy to enter into the game. We mix a little more to have everything sharing all the flavor. All right. Now, heat on low. We add half of the anchovies that we will use for the recipe. All right, so putting it on medium now.
we mix the anchovies so they start melting. They will slowly dissolve inside the sauce.
So while you're cooking, Sebastiano, I wanted to talk about some of the virtual travel series that I've been running. So on every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is the 10th week that we've been traveling somewhere. So we've been to Peru, Morocco, South Africa. Last week we were in East Africa doing safaris, Antarctica, Spain, and wine tasting. So we've been all over the place. And today, obviously, we've visited Sicily. Next week we are going to go to Colombia and doing coffee experiences. So make sure that you are tagging along if you're enjoying those virtual sessions and learning about different parts of the world. And I think this is on a low heat, right?
This is on medium heat.
Medium heat, okay.
I'm turning low, so see now the anchovies are dissolving and becoming part of the sauce. All right, and then is the cherry tomatoes time.
And why only cherry tomatoes? Is that a reason only for that, for the cherry tomato?
Say it again?
Why cherry tomatoes? Why not like larger regular tomatoes?
Because they're sweeter. Usually sweeter, and it's but you can use any kind. You can also use like strained tomatoes from the can or from. This is a little bit longer, but makes everything more delicious and colorful. I also like to buy these medley tomatoes that have different colors, like dark red, and some are green, some are yellow. So now we are mixing everything together. It's on medium. And we are ready to, our water is boiling. So we are ready to add the salt. So watch out, we will use less salt than we normally do because the sauce is already very salty because of the anchovies and the capers. So if you, for example, usually use like a teaspoon, like a tablespoon, use about a half. I'm using this much salt. And we, in Italy, we like to put the salt first when the water is boiling, and then the pasta. Keep always an eye on the tomatoes to avoid any burning and to have the sauce going on. And for the pasta, have a look on the box and see what is the cooking time, and if it has 2 cooking times, the regular and then al dente. We need to cook at the al dente time. So if you have al dente time, follow that. If not, we have just one time, take 2 minutes off. So for example, if it's 10-13 minutes, cook for 11. Or if you have the al dente time, follow that time. The time should start when the water go back to the boiling mode. When you put the pasta in the water stop boiling. So you add the pasta, and then when you see the boil again, you can start your time.
That with the pasta.
Say again?
How did you make the pasta look like that?
Oh, the twist of the pasta? Oh, it's a trick, like a graphical. It's basically you twist the spaghetti and then you release.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I am basically, so I can cook because, as I said before, I was born in Sicily, and then when I moved to the university, I was used to have great food, so I had to learn how to cook because I was living by myself or with my roommates. So I define myself like, okay, cook, not a chef. And all these recipe or tricks that you see, something I learned by doing, or some recipe are a mix of what I learned from my grandma and from the grandmas of my roommates and traveling around Italy and meeting other people. And you know, in Italy we used to, as a way to spend time together, we used some time to invite each other at home and we cook together. So I learned also some tricks from friends. And so it's a mix of
living experience, Sebastiano. This is done by a local person and not exactly a chef.
I'm not a chef. I had some restaurants in New York with friends that we founded, and now we sold everything. But I've never cooked, or I was just making food for friends and for myself. So, and from family, of course, because so we love to share our. So the table and the food is a very big social moment in Italy. And dinner is the most important part of the day, where everybody come back and talk about the day. And so also when you have friends over, it's a joy to cook all together and spend time together. And so this is, since I love to be with friends and I love to eat, this is why I kind of can cook. And in the meantime, you will see that the tomatoes are softening and making the sauce more dense. So for the pasta, we will not drain the pasta with a drainer because I like to get the pasta directly from the water boiling and put into the pan because it saves the starch. And the starch is also one component that make every sauce a little bit creamier. So we will start adding right now some cooking water. If you see, the starch is this little foam that forms while the pasta is boiling. And so I'm just getting one part of this and slowly add into the sauce, make it more delicious. And then when the pasta is ready, moving from the water directly to the pan, we'll add other cooking water that is attached to the pasta. And also the pasta will continue cooking in the pan for the last minutes or so, and will absorb better the sauce. If you drain the pasta, in some way you break this process, you stop the cooking, so in this way you're sure that it gets the most from the sauce that you prepare.
So while you're cooking, Brenda asked me about what's happening in the travel with regards to flying. So Europe is opening up their borders to their neighboring countries in June / July-ish. So a lot of the countries are preparing for tourism. But again, it will probably take some time for the borders to be opened up to international travelers. One other, controversial, interesting thing that happened with Sicily was I think the government actually announced that they will be subsidizing travels to Sicily, which I think, like probably so many other things happening right now, is still super high level and they haven't fully figured it out, and depends on how much really there is meat into that conversation. We'll see how that goes. I read another article that Japan may do something like that as well. So I guess it will be interesting, very, very interesting time.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll be the first. We'll be the first to know if this happens, or if there is any voucher, bonus, discount, extra nights, or contribution for people visiting Sicily. So far is rumors. I know that they might be the funds. They're working on it, and also on the way to give this contribution. It will be like a free night every 2 nights that you pay. There will be a discount on the transportation. Nobody knows, but they are working with it. But so far is not confirmed. Okay, so we are 5 minutes away in our cooking time. For those of you who are cooking, how are you going? You need any advice, suggestion, feedback? You're okay? Feel free to ask. We have these 5 minutes of waiting, basically.
Do you, as a true Italian, do you make pasta with those whole wheat pasta at all, or do you or is that something that we think it's more healthier?
We do, yeah, not very often, but yes, it's definitely an option. There are also these new pasta made with legumes, like there is a farro pasta or beans pasta or another, not yet in the US, but in Italy there are these antique grains that are using very old kind of grains to make the pasta, and it's usually a more rugged, harder texture pasta, but still delicious. How can you smell it? Yeah, the smell is amazing. Yeah, I love this pasta because it's one of my favorites. Very, as you can see, it's very fast and easy to make, and also to reproduce. I hope you'll be able to replicate also in other occasions, because it's bringing a piece of Sicily at home. Okay, see, the sauce is very rich. The broth now has a mix of oil, anchovies, tomato juice, garlic, and it's extremely salty if you want to try. It's basically cooked, so I like the tomato to not dissolve completely, so you can see still the cherry tomatoes, but they release all the flavor and the juice. So
Another question, Sebastiano, is there a reason that you put the whole clove of garlic in there and you didn't chop it?
yeah, because for people who doesn't love garlic, it's easy to remove.
Uh-huh.
So, and then the flavor is less intense. If you chop or cut or even like squeeze the garlic, gets very garlicky. That anyway is also, is a choice. But in this way, is lighter. Plus, if you don't like the garlic, you can remove it at the end. I'm sharing also some personal information. So my wife is American, but she was so in love with Sicily. We got married in Syracuse. You know the church that we saw before, the Duomo, the big one. There was former Athena temple and Arab mosque, and then pagan church, and then Christian church with the Baroque facade. This is where we got married. So yeah, and we had many friends from the US coming, and part of my wife's family is from Korea, so we had also Korean people, all of them for the first time in Sicily. And we did the truffle hunt for the welcome dinner, so we brought everyone in the forest with dogs and getting truffle, and then we went to the watermill that we showed during the presentation. and we cook the truffle, and then we have the reception after the church in one winery that we work with for the wine testing. It's a normal castle with delicious, normal castle with delicious wine, and we have a pool party. We attend one of the festival that I show you in the pictures with the saint brought on the shoulder. So it was basically a week of vacation for everyone, and it was really, really fun.
I think we're feeling that we missed out a great wedding, which was more like a big tour of Sicily at the same time.
yeah. You know, it was fun, and we had all these friends staying in Ortigia in Siracusa, so every night Ortigia was full of all these friends that you were used to meet in New York, and now they were walking there, and you see in the bar your friend having a caffè or espresso. So, and Ortigia is small, and the downtown is very pretty. So we love it. And just to share something personal, while we have 16 seconds to go.
The other thing, I'm so glad that you brought up the truffle hunting, because a lot of people think that they can't associate Sicily with the truffle hunting.
Yeah, so it is. Passing it. In the meantime, the pasta is ready, so I'll show you how to get the pasta directly from the water and get into the pan. So what I meant when I said that, turning it off and removing the pasta. So truffle is something available because we have mountains and we have very wet weather, so rains a lot. So, but the truffle that we have is not, is a white truffle, first of all. So it's not super strong, and also it's not in the Sicilian gastronomy. So basically nobody goes truffle hunt because they don't know how to cook. And also the people into the truffle hunting, they go to Tuscany, they go to Piemonte because the quality is higher, the taste is stronger. So all this makes the truffle widely available in Sicily and easy to find, and is also fun to hunt. But yeah, it's not something that Sicily is famous for. Truffle is more a Tuscany thing, a Piemonte thing, but there is a truffle in Sicily. There are a lot of also truffle around Mount Etna and in the mountains between Palermo and Cefalù. And other than this, all the mountains have forests has mushroom. So there is also incredible variety of mushroom in Sicily. So this is the situation. Okay, so back to the pasta. You can see that now the pasta is absorbing all the sauce. Now all the sauce is inside the pasta. This is making everything very delicious. So we need the pasta to be glossy and a little bit humid before adding the breadcrumbs. When you add the breadcrumbs, you will get everything very dry. So now that we have, let's mix the pasta for a minute more, and then we will slowly add some cooking water to get the pasta a little bit more wet, and then we will add the breadcrumbs. And this is the final part of the pasta. At the very end, we will add the anchovies, the parsley, and some lemon. And we close with the oregano to give the final Sicilian touch to the recipe. The smell is great. I'm sorry that you can just only see this, but I hope that also yours is coming very delicious. The order is not important, but we do the...
I get a question about the subsidized experience, but regardless of the subsidized experience, I think we all should go to Sicily very soon. And again, part of that, again, because if you don't want to go to destinations that had become a little bit touristy, now is a great time to go to Sicily before it gets really busy with tourists, like Amalfi Coast and Positano had become. And I guess the other parts of Italy that you will see more tourist than local. So my suggestion would be if if that's something that you wanted to see, definitely do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, this is true. Now is a great time to go because the offering is widely available and of a very high level. And I think that Sicily is more comparable to Tuscany because it's an entire region. Amalfi Coast is 3 cities, or Rome is 1 city. Sicily is big, so there is space and there is also diversity. So you can do the Arabic city, you can do the Greek Sicily, you can do the different, the beaches. We have islands close to Sicily. The Aeolian Island, they are like having the Hawaii. Volcanic islands that we didn't talk about in the presentation.
Yeah.
They're still active, and the islands are Panarea, Stromboli, Salina, Vulcano.
And they are so beautiful and so authentic. You don't even believe the sceneries that you're seeing in the islands.
It's really like being at the Hawaii, but then you have Sicilian food.
Yeah.
And also we have the Maldives. In front of Trapani, we have the Egadi Island, Favignana, Marettimo, Levanzo, and the water is so crystal clear. It seems really to be at the Maldives, but with Sicilian food. And then, you have Greek architecture. Taormina looks like to be in the French Riviera. In some market of Palermo reminds the Morocco. So in Sicily, it's basically you're traveling around the world within the same destination. So yeah, I know I'm Sicilian, but what can I say? It's what I think is worth it, and I'm really excited for you to visit. So we have added anchovies while talking. I will add a little more cooking water to make the pasta slightly more wet. And then it is now time for the breadcrumbs that we will add almost all. We will leave just a little bit for decoration for the plate later.
Another question. I think that using that breadcrumb, is it something that Sicilian use in their recipes, or is
Yeah.
this okay?
This is 100% Sicilian. Not in all the recipes, but we use the breadcrumbs a lot in the pasta, in swordfish, in sardines. The big sardines that we cook with garlic, parsley, and breadcrumbs. So see, now everything is gotten drier, and you can smell now the bread from the pasta. We're adding a little bit more of cooking water. So now let's turn the heat off on the pasta. We add a little bit of water, not too much, otherwise the bread will not be crunchy, but a little bit to have the pasta separated. All right. Then we add the remaining parsley, fresh parsley. Oregano. Everything to taste, so you can choose a little bit more cooking water. Okay, a little bit of black pepper. And then the final touch, the lemon. Okay, so just squeeze the lemon by hands or with any squeezer. And they will push the flavor of the salty anchovies and capers. Okay. Mix one more time. All right, and then serving. I'll show you a serving technique again, learn by doing. We will use the ladle and a fork. So you get like a portion of the spaghetti. You will put in the ladle and then you will twist to make like a round shape of pasta.
Wow.
Okay, then you add some of the ingredients like tomatoes on top. Okay, and a little bit of breadcrumbs to give crunchiness, and drop of olive oil. And here we are. The pasta is ready for you to enjoy. Heat until it's hot, and then yeah, ask any question if you like, and keep drinking the Etna wine. And cheers! Thank you also for.
I think everyone is just sending hi and regards, and thank you, Sebastiano, very much for again taking the time and transporting us to Sicily. That's what we did, and we've been in Sicily in the past 2 hours or so. And thank you so much for making this amazing dish and show us some of that Sicilian techniques. It was excellent. Thank you so much. And again, thank you everyone.
And thank everybody for attending.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us and spending your evening with us. Make sure that, so we'll be sharing some other recipes as well, and stay tuned for next week virtual travel series. And I'll remember to send some of the wine recommendations that Sebastiano sent. Thank you so much everyone. Have a great evening.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye bye.
Bye.